Hey everyone, so the story that I'm going to talk about today has actually been an issue for quite a while now, but because of everything regarding COVID, it's gotten even worse. So, this is coming from CNBC as blazes spread, COVID 19 in California prisons hits crucial inmate firefighting force. So, for those of you who don't know, California has a ton of wildfires, and a big portion of the firefighters that they use to combat these fires are inmates. And these inmates are given the most dangerous jobs and they're paid below minimum wage. And it's really just awful. And we're seeing now that because of everything regarding COVID, things have gotten even more like it just shows what a flawed system this is already. So let's just jump right into it. Deadly wildfires are still ripping through California, decimating land and homes, forcing thousands of people to evacuate. But first responders lack a crucial part of their emergency response team this year: a prison inmate firefighters. The coronavirus has swept through correctional facilities and infected many vulnerable California inmates, leaving fewer available to help contain more than 2 dozen major fires and over 300 smaller ones ripping through Northern California. So, I mean, right away, I think that the problem should jump out to people. California should not be relying on something so unstable to fight these fires, in the sense that, I mean, what if, I mean, this is obviously just hypothetical, what if people just stopped committing as many crimes and there were less prisoners and they, there were less inmate firefighting forces? California should not be relying on them for the bulk of their the way that they're combating these fires. And honestly, what this has led to in California just over the past few years has been more tough on crime policies to make sure that the flow of quote unquote workers into this prison inmate firefighting system has been steady. And so that this has actually led to policy choices in California. And so the story goes on. The California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection has roughly half as many inmate fire crews than it originally had to work with during the most dangerous part of wildfire season. Many inmate firefighters were sent home from prison after the state granted them early release to mitigate the spread of COVID 19 in crowded facilities. Others had contracted the virus. According to CAL FIRE and the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, some crews were under quarantine, but CAL FIRE said Friday that the last quarantine lifted Thursday night. The CDCR said that currently there are no confirmed cases of COVID 19 in the state's conservation camp program, and there are no conservation camps on quarantine. And so, I mean, it is a real problem when these prisoners are getting released, and you know that when these prisoners are getting released, I mean, they're not releasing like incredibly violent offenders. No, these are people that probably shouldn't have been in prison to begin with. Probably people with like drug offenses and whatnot. Um, and I think that it just really is important to double down on here. The story even touches on it right here. Inmates are often on the front line doing dangerous work and making low pay, between $2 and $5 per day, and an extra 1 hour, $1 per hour when fighting a fire. And so, I mean, this is not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. And these are people, they don't work 8 hours. They're not working 8 hour days. These people put in 15, 16, 17, sometimes even 20-hour days. And I mean, it doesn't detail any overtime in this specifically. And these inmates are given the more dangerous jobs. I mean, they are often put at the front lines fighting like the actual fires, and the rate at which they get injured is so much greater than the rate at which the other firefighters get injured. And it just, every time that I hear people refer to California as this like progressive paradise, like, oh, this is what the left wants, it's just absurd because no actual leftists would support this in their state. But California is run by a ton of Democrats, and I think that it's super important that we separate Democrat from leftist, because there are Democrats that do not support leftist policies. And in a state like California, what it has is, yes, there is definitely majority Democrat rule, but there is so much corruption embedded in the system, and we can't just pretend that just because these people aren't Republicans that they don't push like conservative policies. And these are arguably, this is more neoliberal policies, because there are a number of other things going on in California. I mean, just when you look at the homeless crisis, when you look at what's going on here, I mean, it should jump out to anyone that this is not and some sort of leftist oasis where like just this is exactly what progressives want. But that's a very common talking point, and so I feel like we should really highlight that more and more, that this is very, very far from what we want. And even Gavin Newsom, I mean, Gavin Newsom is a little back and forth. I mean, sometimes he does some good things, sometimes he does some bad things. I think that he's definitely going to make a presidential run in the future, and he's a little bit of a blank slate when it comes to a lot of things. And like sometimes he's a big on the uses the kind of flowery rhetoric that maybe sounds a little bit more progressive, but in terms of what he actually gives support to, not always the best. Sometimes he's really good. I mean, he arguably is one of the biggest reasons that gay marriage is currently legal in this country. I mean, just legalizing it in San Francisco, that was a big deal. And so this is not like Gavin Newsom is definitely someone that can lead the way on a lot of things, but on this issue particularly, I wish that he was. I mean, this just shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be able to make workers or prisoners do this. Like I mean, if prisoners, if this is part of rehabilitation where you are, give them a job and you give them actual money, like you pay them, and because $2 to $5, that's not like actual wages. It should at the very least be minimum wage. And so it's like and you gotta remember, minimum wage is a lot higher than California, so these workers are being paid well below minimum wage. It's one thing if they're doing jobs to like help them rehabilitate, like I actually think that that's a good thing. But they shouldn't be like relied on for like dangerous jobs where they can risk their lives. Like that's ridiculous. And this is common practice. And I think that this is something that we really need to know. And I think that, I mean, and also we got to remember there are more of these fires because of everything going on regarding climate change, because temperatures are going up. I mean, California's going through this tremendous heat wave, and so I mean it's almost a perfect storm. I mean, you have this broken capitalist system that has, I mean, that's allowing prisoners to do this. That people, I mean, a lot of people don't really sympathize with these people because they are in prison, regardless of what they're in prison for. And so I mean, they should be paid. This should not be allowed. There's just so many layers of problems to this. Like, I mean, the prisoners really should be fighting these fires in the first place. At the very least, they should be getting paid. And I mean, it's a lot. And just I think that the biggest takeaway is California is not a leftist state by any stretch of the imagination. There are some progressive things that they do, but it's just so consumed by neoliberal policy that is anything but leftist. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to link this article in the description so that in case you guys want to read all of it. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and